Okay, so again, I always thank Rachel for facilitating this class and for Fifth Avenue Synagogue for their hospitality. It's a joint effort between Hineni and Fifth Avenue. And I'd like to thank everyone who's here, who's for coming. Those who are on Zoom, welcome. Thank you for listening in. Today is Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan, the new month of Cheshvan, the first day of Rosh Chodesh. I wish everybody a month of mazel and bracha and nachas. Everyone's prayers for the month should be answered. Anyone who needs refuahs, who needs good health, those prayers should be answered. It should be a month of tova, goodness and bracha, blessing, sasan, v'simcha, joy and happiness. Now, we know that there are no coincidences in life, and we're on our series of Jewish women. So far, we did our mother Sarah, we did Rebecca, today is Rachel. And this morning, it first hit me. How amazing is this? B'sher, this month, the 11th of Cheshvan, which comes out to be October 17th, is Rachel's Yahrzeit. So I did not plan this at the beginning when we started. Sora,
yes.
And now we're up to Rachel, and it's her Yahrzeit this month. So Rachel Imenu. We say Rachel Imenu in Hebrew. In English, we say Mama Rachel, Mother Rachel. But from all the mothers, it's only Rachel who has that title that we always say Mother Rachel, Mama Rachel. We don't say Mama Sora, Mama Rivka, but somehow with Rachel, we connect, and it's throughout the world that we call Rachel Imenu, Mama Rachel, Mother Rachel. So why is it Rachel from all the mothers that has that title, that we all feel a kinship to her, that she's our mother? For hundreds of years, Jews from all over the world would go visit Kever Rachel to pray, cry, to give their hearts out, with ask questions. We go to Rachel for that connection. Why? A while ago, I read in Ami magazine, Esther Center wrote this about a trip she made to Rachel's burial place, Kever Rachel, and she went there. She took a taxi with some friends from Yerushalayim, and when they pulled in, they expected the taxi driver to drop them off, and he'll go on to do his next trip. Meanwhile, he parks the car, and he opens the glove compartment, and he puts a yarmulke on his head. And she says, this taxi driver looks like your typical Israeli strong guy, straight on the arm. Big guy, shaved head, big dark glasses, lots of chains. And she said, And he starts walking with them. And she's wondering, like, what is this? And all of a sudden, he turns to her and he puts his hand on his heart. And he says, she's my Ima also. She's my Ima also. And he stayed with them, and he died too. So Rachel Imenu, she's your mother, she's my mother, she's the mother of Jewish people. As that taxi driver said, she's my Ima also. There is a beautiful medrash on Lamentations, on Eicha, right after the first destruction of the temple, destruction of the first temple, Korban Bayis Rishon, and the Jews were being exiled into Babylonia, and Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah, calls out to different souls above. And he says to those souls, beg, call out to Hashem, do something for our people. And he calls out to the soul of Abraham. And he says, Abraham Avinu, our father Abraham, do something for your people. Call out to Hashem. And the Medrash says, Abraham said to Hashem, in the merit that I was ready to sacrifice my son Yitzchak for the Akedah, in that merit, do something. Silence. Yirmiyahu calls on to the soul of Yitzchak, something for our people. And Isaac says, in the merit that I was ready to be sacrificed, I was ready to be the Akedah, do something. Silence. To the soul of Yaakov, Jacob. Yaakov says, from the time that I was an infant in the womb, I had struggles with my brother Esau. He wanted to kill me, and I was ready to make peace with him when I left the house of Laban. Do something. Silence. And then to Moshe, even to Moshe Rabbeinu. And Yirmiyahu called out to the soul of Moshe, do something for the people. And Moshe said, in the merit that I took them out of Egypt, I was with them for 40 years in the desert. And they even got to the point they were ready to jump and pounce on me. I said, oh, ma'at yiskaluni. In just a short while, they're going to stone me. There were so many times they were standing up against me. In that merit, silence. And I'm going to read to you the end of the Medrash. Come join. I'm going to read you the end of the Medrash, and I'm reading it to you from the Hebrew and translating. It's so beautiful, I wouldn't do it justice just to repeat it. Just then, after Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, after their souls didn't receive an answer, Kapsa Rachel Imenu Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amra. The soul of Rachel, Rachel Imenu, jumped before Hashem and said, Ribono Shel Olam, Almighty God, Galui v'yadua lifanecha. It's known to you, Sheyakov Abdecha, Ahabani Ahava Rabba, that your servant Yaakov loved me an extra love, Va'avad Bishvili, and he worked for me. La Abba Sheva Shanim.
No, that's exactly what
my
I
father
understand the same thing.
years
Right.
to marry me. It's what completed.
Okay. No, that sounds good.
It was time for me to marry my husband, to marry Yaakov. Ga'atzli avi v'hachlitani. But my father my husband, and says that Rachel told her husband this. One for Rachel, one for Leah, that they would be matching and with big heavy veils, and that way Yaakov would be confused. And Rachel knew that was Laban's plan. So she made up with Yaakov, I'm going to put a pin on my headpiece, and you will know that I am the one with the pin, and you won't be confused, and we won't let my father get away with this plan. But then what happened? Rachel says that it hurt her soul to embarrass her sister, that she knew her sister would be standing under the chuppah, and Yaakov would see the headpiece without a pin, and who knows what would happen. So the Medrash continues, Umasarti lo siman, I gave him a sign, sheyakir beini ubein achoti. I gave my husband a sign that he should be able to distinguish between me and my sister. So my father will not succeed in switching me. After that, I had charata. After that,
maybe it's your favorite.
I had my regrets. I had regrets. The hitgabarti.
And bring over
and I became
the
strong.
male.
I rose above my desires. Berichamti alachoti. And I had rachmanis. I had compassion upon my sister. That she should not be embarrassed.
What?
What? And I did kindness to her.
Well, I am throwing it out.
I had no jealousy of her. And I didn't want her to go to the chuppah and be embarrassed. Uma'ani basar v'dam. What am I? Just flesh and blood. Afar be'evar, dust and ashes. And then Rachel turns to Hashem and she says that you, King of all the universe, Ata, Melech Chai Rachaman, you King of the world, a King of Rachmanis, Mipnei Ma Kinatz La'abodat Elilim, She'ein Bo Mamash. Are you jealous that your people are turning to idol worships, idols that have nothing to them? The Higlit et Banai, and you took your children, my children, the Jewish people, and you exiled them. Nehergu b'chereb, and they were killed by the sword. Va'asui oivim bam Gertzulin, and their enemies did them according to their wishes. Miyad nivgalgalu rachamav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It was then that Hashem had Rachmanis on the Jewish people and said, Bishbil Rachel, because of Rachel, Ani machzir es Yisrael lemakomam. I am going to return the Jewish people to their place. It wasn't the pleas of Abraham, Yitzchak, or Yaakov, nor the pleas of Moshe. It was the pleas of Rachel. Rachel, who had no jealousy, not a jealous bone in her body. Rachel, who knew how to cry for her sister, to feel her sister's pain. Rachel, who had total compassion for her sister. And this is why that Hashem listened to the call of Rachel. And this is the lesson we learn from Rachel, to feel another's pain, to have compassion for another. And perhaps that's why Rachel merited from all the mothers, always the title, Rachel Imenu, Mama Rachel, Ima Rachel, because Rachel feels the pain of her children. Rachel could cry for her children. Rachel understood what her children were going through. It was she who was able to say, Hashem, look what I did for my sister. Look at the suffering of your people. Do something for them. It says, Sharei Dimot, the gates of tears, Lo Nin Alu, are never closed. Hashem listens to us, listens to our tears. It's interesting, this past Shabbos, I met up with a friend of mine, and she told me that her daughter took their grandchild, daughter took her child for an interview in school. This was for kindergarten, the big interview. But the daughter herself, the principal, was asking the daughter, the mother of the future kindergartner, was asking her questions about the family. And then all of a sudden he asked, what do you think about when you light candles Friday night? And she said her daughter was quiet for a moment. And then all of a sudden, the tears started rolling. And the principal said, you're in. That's what he was looking for. A woman, a mother who has compassion, who knows how to pray. And it's not just to pray for your children, but it's to pray for others, to pray for all of Am Yisrael. There's so many people who need prayers, and that's something that we could do. We can't always cure, we can't always erase all the problems of the world. We can't help everybody with all their issues, but we can say, give me your name, I'm going to daven for you. I'll think of you when I light candles. I'll say a kapitel hill, a chapter of Psalms for you. I'm going to have you in mind. That was Rachel. That was the strength of Rachel, to feel for another, to cry for another. Now, I don't know if you remember, but it goes back to 2003, there was the story of Nava Applebaum and her father, Dr. David Applebaum. It was the night before her wedding, and they went to Cafe Hillel. Do you remember? They went to Cafe Hillel in Yerushalayim, and it was supposed to be a night to reminisce about the past and a night to talk about the future. Nava was to get married the next day, and it was a father and daughter night together. All their dreams, I have goosebumps as I'm speaking, all their dreams were shattered because that night there was a terrorist suicide bomber that entered Cafe Hillel. And the next day, instead of all of Nava's friends dancing at her wedding, Ketzad Meraktim Lifnei HaKala, dancing before the Kala, they were mourning at her funeral. Nava's gown, her mother gave that gown to Keva Rachel, and it became a parochet, it became a covering of Keva Rachel. For Rachel, who cries and begs and pleads for her children. I printed this off. This is Keva Rachel with Nava's gown with this embroidery on it that says it should be in memory of Nava Applebaum over Keva Rachel. So that's it. Like with all our pain, where do we go? We go to Keva Rachel. You go to Eretz Yisrael, you make a stop by Keva Rachel. So with time, Rachel was the love of his life. And a week later, after marrying Leah, he married Rachel, and he worked an additional 7 years by Laban for Rachel. But what happened next? Rachel's life was not always easy. She had a very hard time conceiving. And here we find, it says, Havali Banim. She couldn't have children. And she says to Yaakov, Havali Banim, give me children, bring me children. Im ain, and if not, Mesa Anachi. I'm like a dead person. I have no life. She felt that hollowness, that emptiness. If I don't have a child, what kind of life do I have? After some time, and it did take a long time, by Yizkar Elokim es Rachel, God remembered Rachel. He remembered all the kindness she showed to her sister, the love, the compassion, the strength she had not to be jealous. Vayishma Eleha, and he listened to her calls, her prayers. Vayiftach es Rachma, and he opened her womb. She conceived. Batahar, she was pregnant. Batele Bain, and she had a son. Batomar, Asaf Elokim es Harkasi. She said, Hashem took away my shame. She felt without a child. Hashem made her feel like anyone else, she said. But Tikra es Shemel, but what did she name this child? Yosef. Why Yosef? Lamar. Yosef Hashem li ben acher. Hashem, Yosef means add on. Hashem, give me one more child. One's not enough. I want one more, just one more. Is that too much to ask for? Yosef li, add on to me one more child. And her prayers were answered by Yis'u me Beistel, V'hinei, O Tivrat ha'aretz. They were still traveling, Labo Ephrasa, going in the direction of Ephrat, and ever I'm in Israel, I would say it's so amazing because the Chumash becomes alive. Ephrat is still there today. So they're going in the direction of Ephrat. But Batele Rachel, it was time for her to deliver Batikash, and it was a difficult delivery. And here she was in pain. Batomer laha miyaledet. And the midwife said to her, Al tir'i, don't be afraid. Ki gam zel lacha ben. You're having another son. But what happened? By Hipit Seif Nafsho, she didn't make it through. But before she passed away, Batikva Shemo Ben Oni. She called him Ben, she named her son Ben Oni. Ben Oni means the son of my pain. Not that he brought her pain, but the pain of dying, but she knew Ben Oni, I'm in pain knowing that my boys are going to grow up now without a mother. Who's going to comfort them? Who's going to advise them? Who's going to hug them? Who's going to be there for them? Who's going to kiss their boo-boos? Who knows what she was thinking? But she was thinking, Ben-Oni, it's a pain for me to have this feeling that I'm not going to be there for my son. And but Yaakov, he didn't call him Ben-Oni. What did Yaakov call him? Benjamin, the son of my days. To Yaakov, he brought a joy. Every day had an added meaning to it now because this was a living connection to Rachel. Every time he saw Benjamin, what did he think of? He thought of Rachel. He felt that connection to Rachel. So he called him Benjamin, the son of my days. So we see here that Yaakov has Ben Yosef and Benjamin. Yosef and Benjamin, the two sons of Rachel that carried on. And it's interesting, but Yosef and Benjamin were also two very compassionate, loving people, not a jealous bone in them. When Yosef met up again with the brothers after so many years, he forgave, he loved, and he accepted them. And He went out of his way for them to make them comfortable in Egypt, like Rachel, not ever feeling anger or bad. Rachel was a woman of true love and compassion. Before Yaakov's death, he feels he has to explain to his son Yosef why he buried Rachel on the roadside. We know all the couples are buried in Me'urat HaMachpelah, by the cave of Machpelah. We have Abraham buried with Sora, and then we have Yitzchak with Rivka, and we have Yaakov with Leah. In fact, the word Machpelah, one of the meanings of it is kaful. Kaful is double or a couple. So it was all those couples were buried there together. But Rachel was buried on the roadside. Yaakov knew that the day will come when the Jewish people are going to be in pain, where they're going to be exiled, where they're going to be forced to leave their land, and they're going to want to stop and pray. And he said, Rachel will be here. She will be buried here. They will stop and daven and cry out to her. And that's exactly what happened. And here he says, he explains to Yosef, but ani b'boimi padan ram. When I was, comes from Ram, it's not padan ram, b'boimi padan. Mesa alai Rachel. Rachel passed away. The Eretz Canaan, the Derech, Ba'ot Kivrat Aretz. We were on the road, Lavo Efrosa, the Ekbara Sham, and I buried her over there, the Derech Ephras. He Bethlehem. That's Bethlehem, Bethlehem. To this day, it's over there. And he explained to him, for the future generations, she was on the road because they will be on the road and they're going to want to stop and daven there. Throughout the years, we've gone to Kever Rachel with our bakashos, our pleas, our prayers, our needs. A few years ago, I got an invitation. This was the most amazing bar mitzvah invitation. It was from a friend of mine who put down that she is making her son's bar mitzvah at Kever Rachel. And he was there having the whole davening there. He was laying there. He was reading the Torah there. And afterwards, she set up a whole buffet brunch, and all the soldiers joined and all her guests were there. And on the invitation, she wrote that so many go to Kever Rachel with crying, with their sad stories, with their needs. And she said, I want to go to Kever Rachel with my nachas. I am going to give Rachel Imenu nachas. I am going to have my son's bar mitzvah at Kever Rachel. So what's the takeaway from Rachel Imenu? Learn compassion, learn to feel for another, learn to daven for another, learn to cry for somebody else. When we were children, my mother, blessed memory, always had company Friday night, people from the shul, people from the community. And my mother would, by candlelight, would always tell us names of people who needed a refuah shalema, who needed a recovery, who needed Hashem's help. And we would say those names with my mother. And one Friday night we had guests, and my mother said the name of someone from the community. And that person so happened still had little children at home. And my youngest brother, she's someone, Rabbi Usher, he started to cry. He was all upset, just the thought that somebody's sick. And our Shabbos guest said to my mother, why are you doing this to make your little boy cry? Like, save him the tears. He's just a little boy. And my mother said something so profound that I will always remember. My mother said, all children cry. Some children cry for toys. Some children cry for candy. My children are going to learn to cry for somebody else. To cry for another person. To feel another person's pain. That was Rachel and Naomi. We are all daughters of Rachel. When we started this series, I brought down how we're going through women of the Torah. We did Sora, Rivka. This week we did Rachel. Next class we're going to do Leah. But our mothers, they are our mothers. We are carriers of their spiritual genes. Their lives and our lives are intertwined. And the same way a person could inherit hair color and eye color, or a person could inherit musical talents or artistic talents, the same way we could inherit all these traits and characteristics, so too can we inherit the spiritual genes. We are the carriers of the spiritual DNA of our matriarchs. And we may say, how could we do it? But we can, because they are with us. We have their genes and we have their blessings from above. They are walking with us. We are never alone. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. The next class will be the first week, always the first Wednesday of the month. So it'll be the first Wednesday of November, which is November 3rd, 2:00. And I hope everyone could join you, and you're all welcome to bring friends, right? Great. And if you can't make it, we're always available on Zoom. Thank you so much.